All right, FireFit athletes, it's time for the most anticipated and most requested video. It's time to talk about the rope pull. Yes! Yes! The rope pull is a part of the course where you lean over a railing and you have to, with a rope, haul up a 42-pound hose bundle up over a 3-story railing and then put it into a box at the top of the tower. Now, this is the most technical part of the course. It's really important to be efficient in this part of the course. It's also something that you have to temper your expectations. It's one of the shorter portions of the course for most athletes. So what we like to say is, this is not the part of the course where you win your race, but it's definitely a part of the course where you can lose your race. The fastest athletes in the world can pull a rope in about 6 seconds during their individual run. And so that's what we're going to be aiming for. So now I got to throw on some equipment. We're going to head to the top of the tower and we're going to dig into the rope pull. Okay, you've made it to the top of the tower after the stairs up, and now it's time for the rope hoist. The rope hoist is the second section of the FireFit and Firefighter Challenge course. It's meant to simulate a roof sector or another crew hauling tools up to the roof of a building using a rope. The rope hoist that we use in this competition is about 42 pounds, and you have to lean over the railing and you have to haul it up 3 stories. It comes over the top and then it goes into a box on the outside of the tower. For our course, we time the rope split from the moment the athlete touches the rope to the bundle going over the top railing. 6 seconds is elite. The fastest I've ever seen it done during relay is just under 6 seconds. Most athletes in the top range of the sport will be in the 7-second range, and then it kind of goes up from there. Anything under a 10-second rope is considered a decent rope for your individual run. Basically, the rope pull comes down to 2 things. Pull long and pull fast. You want your hand transition to be quick, and you want each pull to be as long as possible. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dig in and look at some tips and hacks on how to do that. But all of these tips and hacks are centered at those 2 goals: to pull faster or to pull longer. One last note before I dig into the tips, and this is the hardest thing for most athletes, is you need to do it right before you do it fast, especially when you're new to the sport. A lot of people want to get up here and they want to start yarding on it as hard and as fast as they can. There's a lot of wow factor to the rope, so it looks really good when it goes well, and so people want to do it quickly right from the start. It's really important, more here than any other part of the course, to get the technical foundation before you try to speed up. So we will show you a couple of things you can do to make sure that that happens. The first thing we want to talk about when you're getting up to the top of the tower and you're approaching the rope is your body position. Now this will change depending on basically how tall you are. If you want to be good at the rope, the first thing you should do is be born as a 6'4" athlete. Now, barring the fact that you're 6'4", your height is going to change how you approach. I'm about 6 feet tall, so my hips can line up with this top railing. So I want to get over top as much as I can so that when I pull the rope, I can keep the rope away front of the platform so that my hands aren't banging into the platform while I'm trying to grab for the rope. If you're a little bit shorter and you're dropped down, you're going to want to get your sternum against the railing, and you're going to be able to really reach down and grab for that rope. And then if you're really tall and you have a lot of upper body strength, you can kind of get right up over top, and then you can turn your rope basically into all upper body and back. While that is probably the fastest way to do it, it is the hardest way to do it. So you're going to have to, as an athlete, figure out what's going to work best for you to be efficient, to be able to breathe, and have a little bit left in the tank for the rest of the course. The other thing I want to talk about is the start of the rope. So after you're in a good position, is you want to use your first 2 pulls to set a rhythm. Feel the rhythm! Most people's mistake is they get up to the tower, they grab the rope, and then they way over pull it, they get a whole bunch of slack, and then their next pull is dirty, and then basically it sets you up to have a really bad rope pull all the way through. What I like to think about is my first 2 pulls are to set a rhythm. Feel the rhythm! To get the trace established, and then from there I can start to speed up. One of the things that I do is I start with my non-dominant hand. The reason I do that is it helps to prevent me from over pulling because I'm all jacked up from the stairs coming up and it's race day. Some people like to always start with their outside hand or their inside hand because they count their pulls and they know how they want to finish. These are all things that you have to kind of try out over time to figure out what works for you. But for myself, I always start with my left hand. And what I'm going to do is I grab with my left hand, and what I'm trying to do here is set the trace like this. And then the next one is to set the trace again. And then after those first 2 pulls is when I start to speed up. The way I set my rhythm, feel the rhythm, is I count out loud my first 2 pulls. So I will approach from the tower. So I drop the pack, I get here, left hand, 1, 2, and then I speed up after that. So that counting out loud 1, 2 is a reminder or a reinforcement for myself to take the first 2 pulls under control, set my rhythm, set my trace, and then I can speed up. All right, the second thing I want to talk about is tracing. Trace, trace, trace. This is so important. This is the hardest thing for people to get right during their rope pull. When I talk about tracing, what I'm talking about is as this hand is pulling back, this hand meets it, and basically the rope is sliding through that lower hand while this hand is pulling up. So you end in a position where you're stretched out, and then as this hand comes up, this hand is coming down, catching the rope fist to fist, and then it's pulling through this hand again. The reason you do that is this gives you maximum control over the rope. If you trace properly, you will not miss the rope. In fact, if you trace properly, you can do it with your eyes closed.
Yeah, he will not be able to see very well, Cotton.
Now, the thing about this is because you're racing with a regulator and a mask and you have limited visibility, there's a good chance that when you're pulling rope, you're not going to have really good eyes on the rope. So having this muscle memory of tracing your hands on the rope makes you efficient and accurate so you don't miss the rope while you're pulling. What you'll see is most athletes, when they miss the rope, it's because instead of reaching fist to fist and tracing, they're just diving down and trying to get the rope low, and then they end up missing that way. So in order to properly set up a trace, you want a good hand position. And the way to have a good hand position is you go overhand grip, and then as you pull, you're gonna twist your wrist like this. And what you see here is now this is in line, and this bite on the rope adds extra friction so that this rope is not going to slide through my hand. If I try to grab like this, it's going to, in line, it's very easy for the rope to slide through my hand that way. So you always overhand grip on both sides, and that will give you a much stronger position on the rope. I want to talk about tracing. The best way that you can learn how to trace properly is to put a light weight on the rope.
Lightweight! Yeah!
Take the 42-pound bundle off, put on 20 pounds or 25 pounds, and practice the technique. All of the new athletes out there, this is the #1 thing I can suggest. Do it right before you do it fast. Put a light weight on, practice the trace, get it right, build that muscle memory over and over and over, then add weight on, and then it'll be much easier to do the same thing with the proper weight. What I want to show you here is just a different angle on your overhand grip. So if you have a rope like this, when you grab, and now you can see I twist my wrist like this as I pull. That's what I mean by that overhand grip and then that twist. So now this is in line, my grip is really strong, and I can use this to pull the rope. I'm going to demonstrate here some tracing techniques. The idea now is, so I'm going to grab overhand, and then as this hand comes up, this hand gets right on the rope. And then now, as this hand comes up, the bottom hand traces. And you'll start to hear a bit of a zip sound. So you can see my fists are meeting together. And that's what we mean by tracing. The reason that's so effective is you're not chasing the rope with your other hand. You know exactly where it is, and you're just trying to meet hand to hand. One of the #1 things I suggest for people who are trying to learn this technique is, I call them paused pulls. So basically you're gonna make the tracing transition, and you're gonna pause for 2 seconds, then you're gonna make the next tracing transition and pause for 2 seconds. So it looks like this. So trace, 1, 2, trace, 1, 2, trace, 1, 2. The idea now is if you can do that comfortably and it looks good and the trace is going well, then you reduce the pause to 1 second. So 1, 1, 1. And then once that starts feeling good, then you can start doing them back to back. The next point I want to talk about is pulling straight. Now, that sounds obvious, but there's a real tendency, especially when you're excited and you're trying really hard, to get this kind of side to side motion. And what ends up happening is I'm wasting so much energy going side to side, and that energy is not moving up with the rope. There's a few different ways that you can give yourself a mental cue. So when I start feeling myself going side to side, I start thinking about pulling through my belly button. So I grab the rope and I'm thinking about my fist coming up through my belly button and then finishing behind me. So there's a couple ways of doing that is you can pull it up and then think about putting it in your back pocket. You want to just be careful of finishing straight up, because if you let go of the rope, then it's just going to fall down in front of you and you're going to have a mess to deal with. So even if you're one of those guys who can get right over top, really strong, big long pulls, and you finish up here, you still have to finish back to clear the rope so that it doesn't fall in front of you. When I'm pulling up, it's up through my belly button, up through my belly button, up through my belly button. And then what that requires is that twist. You should see that my upper body is really twisting. And that twist is what allows me to have a long reach down. So twist, belly button twist, belly button twist, belly button twist, just like that. Point number 4 is to use your legs. Now there are a few of you. Lukas from Lithuania, his rope pull is absolutely insane. He's able to do this. Guys like Aaron McKinga, Daryl Hoopmer, there's a few guys in the sport who can just lean over and just rip on it. It comes up and it flies over. For most of us mortals, we have to use our legs to help generate the power to bring the hose up. The way you do that is you want your feet kind of in an athletic position, like you're going to do a vertical jump. And then as I reach with my left hand, I'm going to exaggerate this so you can see. I'm going to twist my hip and you're going to see that my left knee drops. And then when I pull, you're going to see that this left leg extends, and that's where I get that energy. So now you should see, looking at my butt, you should see that this right leg is bent, and now when I pull, see how it straightens up? So what I want you to notice is the calf extension and the leg extension during these pulls. I did over exaggerate that a little bit for the point of demonstration, but I think you get the idea. Is there's a lot of energy being driven up through the legs, and you do that by switching back and forth. I'm going to do my best to do a full speed demonstration here. So I'm going to come up one flight of stairs, I'm going to do a rope pull. What I want you to watch is how my legs are involved and how my body is twisting to accommodate for a long reach. So here's a little note for you. I basically held my breath almost the entire time. That is suboptimal. You don't want to do that. If you're doing a relay pull or you're just doing an up rope, something like that, then that's okay. But if you're pulling rope as part of your individual, it's really important that you keep breathing. And the way you do that is by focusing on your exhales. So just on that last note about breathing, I'll show you one thing that you can do. Because it's positive pressure air while you're racing, you need to focus on your exhales. When you breathe in, positive pressure, you're going to get a lot of air. So by focusing on your exhales, it makes your breathing more efficient and better. I try to focus on an exhale, like around every second pull, something, and I'll exaggerate it a little bit here. So I'm really forcing that exhale, which means I'm naturally going to get a good inhale. You're going to have to find the rhythm and the pace of the breathing that works for you. The most important thing is that you breathe. Anything that's really torsional, so reaching twisting, expanding, any movement like this, you're gonna have a real tendency to hold your breath. It's a natural body response to try to build thoracic and midline stability because you're doing a maximum effort while twisting. The nice thing about exhaling, if you exhale through a grunt, then it allows you to breathe out, but you actually still get the benefit of the midline stability from the grunt. So the guys kind of make fun of me a little bit. I do a lot of grunting while I'm racing, and that's the main reason. Pick up hose, pick up dummy, hitting the hammer, every second pull. I'm grunting because it's an audible thing that I can hear to make sure that I'm exhaling and breathing well while also getting the midline stability that you want. This next point is an important one, and this point is to work with momentum. Don't think about the rope pull as a constant speed top to bottom. I want you to think about it as an acceleration. And all the best rope pullers, you'll see the same thing. The first couple of pulls aren't that fast, but then each one after that gets faster and faster and faster. So by the time the bundle hits up where the railing is, it's flying over, and they actually even have to control it down into the box because it has so much momentum. That's the goal of your rope pull, is to work with momentum. So right at the beginning, I said that the rope pull is about two things. It's about fast pulls and it's about longer pulls. This is where we talk a little bit about how that comes together. If you're finding that when you pull the rope and you give it a yank, it comes up and there's a whole bunch of slack, and then it drops and bounces, and then your hand gets on it and you pull and it comes up, and then there's slack and it drops and you have to catch it. What's happening there is you have two choices. You either need to pull faster or you need to pull longer. You're gonna have to figure out which of those options is gonna make your rope pull better. So what I think about it as is, for myself, is typically I'm trying to go faster. So I start slower and then try to pull faster. Some guys start a little slow and then with each pull, they pull longer. If you are somebody who has longer wingspan, you should lean more towards the side of increasing the length of your pull each time. If you're somebody who's shorter and somebody who has a little bit shorter arms, you should be thinking about increasing the pace of the pull as it goes up so you're working with momentum. It's one of those things that, probably, I would say maybe only 1 out of 5 of my races does this usually kind of happen properly with the momentum. I'm not naturally the best at the rope, but when you feel it, it's the best feeling in the world, because the last half, it feels like the bundle's almost completely unweighted. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna reach over, I'm gonna do my 1, 2 to set my rhythm, and then hopefully what you see is that as I go, they get faster and longer, and then the rope is gonna come over with momentum over the top. So I attack, 1, 2, so hopefully it's visible, or hopefully it was noticeable how I started slow, and then I set the rhythm, and then I started to speed up, and you could see the hand speed up, and then when the rope comes over, you can see there's a lot of momentum coming over the top. So that's what we're aiming for here. All right, so I want to talk about 2 tips. I want to talk about how to pull longer and how to pull faster. So if you're one of those people who thinks that pulling longer is for you, then what you need to focus on is that torso twist and getting a much more of a torso twist, because you can see now, watch as I twist this hand. The more I twist, the more I can get down the rope and get a grip on it. Look at what happens as soon as I square my shoulders. See how my hand came up? So I square my shoulders. So even though my center of mass is in the exact same position, as soon as I square my shoulders, I lose, say, 5 inches. Well, if it takes me 10 pulls, that's 50 inches. So now you're looking at 5 feet extra that you could have lost or gained just by finishing with a good twist and getting all the way down, right? So I'm here, then twist, right? Twist. And my armpit's right against that railing, and I'm getting a full reach. If you're one of those people who you need to work on your hand speed, the tip I can give you is throw your trace hand. Your trace hand is going to be the decider on how fast your cycle is pulling rope. So when I pull up, instead of just casually putting my hand down like that, what I want to do is I want to throw that hand down, throw that hand down, throw that hand down. And that's where you hear that zip sound, because I'm throwing it down. The next point I want to talk about is finishing strong and clearing the railing. People have a tendency sometimes that when the rope bundle is getting close, they will pause and then do a big reach and try to finish. That kills your momentum. You really want, in theory, to have the momentum of the pack coming up so that there's no change to your cadence. You're going all the way till the pack's in the right spot, and then you're heading over. You're not pulling the pack till it's in a good spot, pausing, and then doing this big swing. Now, if you're a beginner athlete or you're a shorter athlete, what's really important for you at this point is to realize the bundle has a tendency sometimes to catch on the bottom of this platform. So what I recommend is if you can, during those last couple of pulls, take your upper body and just get it out 4 to 5 inches.
That's what she said.
Then that moves that rope 4 to 5 inches away from the front face of the railing here. And then that will help it to clear as you come over the top. See what's happening right here? See how this rope is right against the tower? So if I try to pull now, it's gonna bang into the bottom like that, right? So what I wanna do is, if I can just get out that 4 to 6 inches, and now when I pull here, it comes up and it's not gonna hit the bottom of the tower. So when my last 1 or 2 pulls, I just lean my upper body a little bit more over top. Now you can see I've got a really good grip right here. Outside arm, powerful row into the box. So there will be a box here. Our box is a little big compared to the normal one, but there's a box here. Normally there's a hose pack. So if your bundle comes over, if you throw it really hard on the hose pack, it can bounce out and then you'll get a penalty. It's happened to me a few times. So when you bring this thing over, if it comes over with a lot of momentum, sometimes what I do is I'll have my hand just kind of covering the pack as I move past, just to make sure that if it bounces, I can kind of knock it back in. And then when you finish with that bundle over top, it's not time to stop and go, oh, good, the rope's over, now I'll do the stairs. You want to finish with momentum, already leaning towards the stairs, so that this transition is really quick. If you want to know how to do the downstairs, I've got a video for that as well. One final thing about the finish. If you want to do a Hail Mary and save a little bit of time, I'll show you something that you can do. Now, I really only recommend this for athletes, men who are running under a sub 90 second, or females who are running around the 2-minute mark. I think the risk reward isn't there. So normally I coach athletes to go all the way to the knot on the bundle when they're pulling. So for example, if you look over top here, so I'm gonna pull right to that knot. I'm totally in control. Now it comes over. The last thing you want is this. You go and then it hooks here. This will kill your soul. The reason is now you've got to reposition. You got to grab it and you got to work with 2 hands and get it over. You're going to add at least 3 to 4 seconds to your rope pull by having it catch on this railing. So that's why I suggest for most athletes, go right to that knot with momentum and rip it over under control. If you are Lucas or Brad or Mike or, guys who are at the 80-second mark, girls at the 2-second or the 2-minute mark, you can do a bit of a Hail Mary. The big thing about the Hail Mary is you need to have momentum in your rope already. And when you go to do the Hail Mary, there can't be a pause. It has to be smooth. So I'm going to start here. So the rope's coming up. So you can see that bundle was below the rail or the foot of the platform, but because there was momentum, I was able to pull, and then this hand gets on the rope, continues to pull, and sails and puts it in. It's very risky, but if you do it, that's the kind of thing that can shave 3/4 of a second off of your rope pull. Is it worth it? That's what you have to decide. I spent an entire year training to take 2 seconds off my personal best. That was one of the things that I did because it was hard for me to find those marginal gains, and this was one of the ones that I could do. So that's just a little tip for you that you can think about whether or not you want to throw it into your run. So I believe that's 7 different techniques to help you with your rope. The rope is an interesting part of the course. I remember when I first started the sport way back in the day in 2012, one of the national champs at the time, Graham McKenzie, when he pulled rope, the whole crowd would go, oh, there was like this reaction because when it goes well, it's smooth and it's fast. It's such a cool thing to see, you know, and we've got guys out there now who are doing the same thing. Like I said, Brad and Lucas, those guys are pulling ropes that are crazy. Even Anthony Story, like there's so many guys out there pulling really great ropes at the top of the game. The last piece that I want to leave with you is this. I've given you 20 different techniques that you can work on. You can only work on 1 or 2 at a time. So what I want you to think about on each of these techniques that I've talked about today is what are the 1 or 2 that's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, and you're going to work on those. Once you get those dialed in, you pick 1 or 2 more. It's just too much to think about all at once, and it's like a fighter in the corner in between rounds. The best corner coaches are only trying to communicate 1 or 2 things to their athlete. That athlete is so hyped up.
Chip, I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew.
He's got so much adrenaline, it's impossible for him to remember 17 different techniques. It's the same for us during the rope pull. So you need to think of 1 or 2 things, 1 or 2 mental cues. So for myself, I start with the 1, 2, then I'm thinking about pulling through my belly button, and then I'm thinking faster, faster, faster. Those are the only 3 things I'm thinking about while I'm pulling the rope. So take some time, think about these techniques, figure out which ones are going to work for you, and work on them a couple at a time, and then just build. As you have a career in this sport over time, you slowly build these skills, you put them in your tool belt, till eventually you can pull a 6-second rope, and that's the goal.
Quickly before I go, I just wanted to throw some splits up on the screen for you so you can have an idea of what times you want to target for your rope, depending on what your target time is for your overall race.
So hopefully this helped everybody. With that, this is Coach Jordan. See you later.
Come on down to the gym, we'll see what we can do. Just hang on. Are you the coach?